Hey everyone, LooneyFarmGuy here with Mechanic Max, and today we're going to be changing, or attempting to change, the inner and outer tie rod ends on this '09 Dodge Caravan. Now, for those of you who were hoping that Mechanic Max was going to do it according to the short I released, unfortunately I did not have enough dog treats to satisfy his demands, so he will be supervising this project, and so that's what we're going to do today. But before we start, let's take a look at what we're going to need for this project. Right, Max? He seems unenthused. Let's go take a look. All right, so here we are with at least most of the items we're going to need for this project. Specifically, we have the left inner tie rod end. I'm not sure if there's any difference between the left and the right, possibly length, but anyways, this is specific to the left side, a Moog part. And we have the outer tie rod end, also specific to this make, model, and left side. Right, so what else are we going to need? Well, let's start over here. We got some zip ties, which we will show a couple of different lengths I got, so we're going to find out which one we're going to need once we get into it. We have a pry bar and some other tools, some pliers, side cutters, a marker. We have a 3/8 ratcheting, or a ratchet with a flex head, extension, a breaker bar. We have a specific tool, inner tie rod tool, and we will show you exactly how this works. A very handy dandy tool, and this is the first time for me trying one of these out, so that's going to be interesting. I also have a cordless 1/2-inch impact wrench and a air driven one. The air-driven one's more powerful. This one's very handy, obviously, having without the hose. 2 sockets, a 19mm socket for the wheel lug nuts, and this is, I believe, where is it? 14mm. That is the size that these nuts are, so we'll show you how this whole thing works here. Also, some very important safety things you may want to use: latex or nitrolite gloves, mechanic gloves, also useful, wheel chocks, safety item. I have a video showing you how I made these, so if you want to see how I made these, I will put a link in the description to this video. Jack, 2 of these, preferably. I have 2 of these, and also well, we have rags, that's very important. We have some bearing grease, that's always handy to have. WD-40 perhaps if you have a bolt that's being a bit stubborn or whatsoever. And perhaps we will need probably some different sizes of the sockets once we get into the inner workings. I'm not sure what size the bolts to hold this on, and there's an adjustment bolt on the old inner tie rod that will need to be removed. So because we're changing both of these, I'm going to try something a little bit different, and we're because when changing these types of parts, it's extremely important to put the new ones on exactly the same length and the same way the old ones came off, so that your wheel alignment is not messed up with, or at least it's very close to where it was. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to a alignment shop and get a wheel alignment. So now let's go. I'm going to go set up the van, and we'll start getting into how we start this whole project. All right, so here we are. I have removed the wheel, put it up on wheel jacks, and just to have a quick look around, I have placed the wheel chocks so that there's no possibility of it moving back and forth. I have placed jack stands on both sides of the car, As you can see here, if you don't have a floor jack, you can use the jack that comes with the van or the vehicle. It is a little bit dicey. Sometimes they're not. They are basically used for emergency purposes, but you can get away with it. Just be very careful. So now, what do we got for, I have determined a few extra pieces of equipment I'm going to need. A dead blow hammer, or you can use it as a maraca. We have a magnetic dish for nuts, bolts, etc. Farm Dog Max wants to inspect. So okay, little buddy, make sure everything's safe. Right on, dude. Some WD-40, of course we had that later. This is a 22mm wrench we will need, and an 18mm socket. So let's have a look at the inner workings here. So here's our tie rod end. This is the 18mm socket or the nut that we need. This is the bolt or the nut, 22mm. And if we take a look way back in there, we're going to have to fool around in there. There's a tie down strap that we're going to have to remove. There's also this, there's a little clip here, a release clip that we're going to have to undo and move this boot back in order to access the inside. We'll try to document that as best as I can with my phone here. And so let me set up the camera, and let's oh, before we do that, we're going to need to put a little bit of WD-40, not too much. You don't want it all over the place, but we want to kind of let that soak in a little bit, and we don't want to be breaking any bolts or anything like that. Right, so let this soak in, and we'll get to it. All right, so here we are, and we've had this soaking for a little bit. And first thing I'm going to do is try to break this loose, because once you get this off, this is going to be really hard to loosen. I just want to loosen it so that later I'm not fighting with it trying to get it off. We don't want to really take it all the way off, and it's on there pretty good. Thus the dead blow hammer. Let's see if we can get a better angle at it here. There we go. Did I miss it? She slipped off. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a challenge. There we go. Has she broken loose? No, I was just breaking it, not breaking it loose. Looks like we've got it. Yeah. She's loose, but she is tight. So you can see the whole shaft is spinning there. So that's going to be a bit of a project for later, but I don't want to lose this spot, because when we put on the other one, we want to make sure this is exactly the same length as to not to mess up our geometry of our steering. So let's have a go at this. That definitely went a whole lot better. Now it's still on there. I've seen a couple of tricks that they say give this couple of whacks. Doesn't seem to be. There we go. So now we are loose. We can take this completely out if we want. And she's ready to go. Now, do I want to take it out yet? Maybe. Like I said, I guess I should have, see, now we're spinning. Right. Let me go grab some pliers. All right, so not a huge deal if you, we're replacing this tie rod anyways. If you were wanting to save it, then that probably wouldn't have been a good idea, because you don't want to damage this, although it looks like it hasn't been damaged that much. But this one does not have a grease nipple in it. The new one does. As a matter of fact, the new one has new bolt and all sorts of fun stuff there that's going to help us. Now, let's, all right, so this guy has to come off, and hopefully I can show that with the needle nose pliers here. That just opens up like that. Hopefully I didn't. Yeah, there we go. And there. And that's what you want. There is that off. And now this can be moved. Oh, and slid down. Well, slid down once. Well, once we get that inner way back there. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to get in there. So I'm going to do that. And then once we have that off, we can proceed. All right, so I finally managed to get this boot off this, this metal strap on there. I had to take a chisel to it to get it off. It is such a tight spot there, and I've managed to damage this a bit, so we're going to have to address that. I checked with the local parts places, and none of them have an exact fit. I'd have to get it from the dealer, and there's a universal cut to fit one for $35. I think we're going to make this one work. Now, as you can see, this is the spot that that you spin off. We're going to go take a look at the new one, and I'm going to show you how we're going to take this off. All right, so here we are. We have our inner tie rod in. If you remember, this part here was the part we need to get to. And here is our tool that we were talking about. So how does this work? Well, this is how it works. I'm going to have to take these off, but the idea is you slide this device on there, or fit it on there, and I'll turn it around this way so you can see what's going on here. What it is it fits on this part here, and you tighten these up really nice and snug, really nice and tight. And now, this is how you're looking at it. Now, you can take an extension, a 3/8 extension, that's in there, and your ratchet. Of course, it'd be tight. Your ratchet end, there, this being on there, and now turning this. Turning this will turn your end. You'll be able to loosen that and unscrew it and come out. That's in a perfect world, of course. And so now we're going to take this over to our vehicle and fit that on the tie rod. Okay, there we go. We have it on, and it's an extremely tight spot. Can't even get a socket on here, but you can get a wrench. I can't even see what I'm doing. There we go. And it's nice and snug. You want it tight. And you want to make sure that you're on this and not on the shaft behind it, because that would be very bad. So we're checking with our fingers, and it's all good there. So now we're going to attach the extension and my ratchet, and hopefully she'll break free. All right, so here we are, and we're gonna see. Oh, this is gonna be awkward. Oh. I'm gonna have to get a longer extension. Well, it was time to call in some reinforcements. I got a 1/2 inch, really long, big ratchet, and we're gonna see if we can break this thing free without hurting myself. And I think we've done it. Yes, there we go. Woo. And now, just a matter of spinning it off. And voila, we have got the whole thing all off in one piece. So, now what? Well, let's go back into the shop. See, that's where I had it just right. So, before I do anything else with this, and I'm sure there's better ways of doing this, but I am going to mark on the table here the center of this cap here. I have marked, and we're going to mark the end here at a very specific point, and here. The reason I'm going at the top of here is because this moves and is not, although it is pretty good, if we go like that, and it would have to be right, so we're going like that. So before I take anything apart here, also, when I'm taking this apart, when I take this off, remember we didn't move this one? I'm going to match this up with here and mark where the bolt is, so that when I put the new one on, we're going to be at the same spot, and we can double measure. I'm actually going to take a measuring tape and measure this as well. So now now I'm going to have to get this off, and so in the next section of this video we'll have this apart, and I'll have this the new one marked, and we're going to put it together, and I'm going to have it put it together. All right, so we have done a test fit here, and without the bellows on there. That's what they call them, they call it a bellows. Anyway, so because this one I had to cut the bolt off to get it off. It was on there pretty bad. So let's dispose of the old one. Now, actually, the best thing I did was measure the old one from the end to top center, which was 45.5 centimeters, pretty much exactly. And by measurement, we are right on the money. Also, using this tape mark I had on the shaft itself, and marks on the table, as well as how many turns. It was a few more turns. These parts aren't always exactly the same as the original or whatever was on there before. So some of this, for instance, this is a little different of length and shape, and so forth. But the two constants are always the piece that fits snugly against, or this piece here, and the center of your pin. So hopefully we got all that together. So now I'm going to make sure this is in place here, or at least marked, so that's marked there. And we have another, we'll measure it again, but we got to put this on, put all this stuff on. What I have been told is a good idea is to actually put some extra grease on this part here, because it doesn't really get, or it doesn't have a whole lot when they send it. So we're going to put some extra grease on there just so it is nice and maximum greasage. And we're going to have it assembled, and we're going to tighten up as best we can. We're going to double check this nut here once it's on the vehicle to make sure it's nice and snug. But there we go. That's we'll show it to you when it's all put together. Okay, so before we carry on any further, we have attached everything, put the bellows on. This has gone on. We have put our grease nipple. This one is a greasable one. We're going to measure it one more time. And try not to, yes, here we go, 45 and a half. Maybe could use half a turn more. We want to do that. We want to get that as close as possible before we lock it in. And there we go. That's really close. Right. So now I'm going to tighten up this so it doesn't move. And we're going to go and, well, actually what I'm going to do is, where's my tool? There it is. We're going to put this on here on the bench, so that when we go in there, all we have to do is spin it on and then crank it on. This already has Loctite on the end of it, according to the little piece of paper that was in there. So there we go. Now off to the car. All right, so I have firmly attached using that special tool. I'm not going to show that. We still have not this, but I did measure this one more time, and I'm going to measure it one more time before I'm done, before I actually attach this onto here. But what I'm going to do first, I think is the best idea, is notice I have pre-done a loosely attached zip tie to this back piece. We are going to reuse this because the sealing point is actually further back, so the little bit of damage I did is not going to hurt it. What I'm going to do is turn the wheel so that rack goes all the way back there, and it'll be easier, not easy, easier to attach this to that back piece. And then I'll have to get underneath and tighten this zip tie. Hopefully it tucks in right in here, which I'm going to try to right back in there, because I can get at it underneath there to tighten it up. So anyways, wish me luck. All right, so we have attached the boot, tightened the strap, attached this retainer ring there so the boot doesn't slide up and back. We haven't tightened this yet, but we've tightened this, and now we're to the point where we get our torque wrench set to 55 pounds per square inch, and wait for the click. Still going. Still going. Still going. I think 55 is probably a little bit. Let's dial it back a little bit and see where we are. Okay, we're at 40, so we can bump it up to 45. And I think we'll be good there because it's pretty tight. Oh, it's snapping at 45. Let's go to 50. Sorry about that. There we go. So that's good enough. Now, nice. What's next is we have a cotter pin that goes in here. I'll get my cotter pin, and that goes in there just like that and gets bent over. Just a light tap with the hammer to make sure this does not come undone. And now just need to tighten this up. Gotta go grab my wrench. All right, let's make sure that she is nice and tight so she's not gonna go anywhere. Yeah. Good. And straighten this back out. One last thing to do is we're gonna grease this grease nipple down there. So let me grab my grease gun. All right, so of course if this was on a hoist, this operation would be way easier. However, we are not, so I have run out of grease. All right, so now it's time to get the tire back on. Hopefully, well, we've checked everything, and hopefully we're lined all up. So the only thing that's really going to determine whether or not we have, oh, this tire is heavy. There we go. Let's get those bolts started by hand. Come on, little fella. What you don't want to do is take the impact on here and start it with the impact. It's a great way to cross thread your bolts. Hand tighten them. If you have to use the socket on it, to hand tighten it if it's too far in there. Like so. Whoop. Being very careful, don't force it. It should go on very easy. There we go. They're all started. Grab our impact and a hose. All right, we got our impact. Make sure it's going the right way. Alright, now we're going to let her down, and we're going to use a torque wrench on these lugs to make sure they're torqued to the right tightness. Alright, so here we are, full vehicle weight on the ground. We have our torque wrench set to 95 foot-pounds, which is recommended for this particular vehicle. And we're going to, well, that's good. You want to do it in a cross pattern as well. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. And that's good. Well, as you can see, it's very easy to over torque bolts with an impact. So don't ever overdo it with an impact. You could damage, you could break a bolt even if you have a strong enough impact. But there you go. That's how I spent a whole day changing an inner and outer tie rod in on an 09 Dodge Caravan. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And right, so there you go. Stay tuned for more videos like this or random stuff. And before I go, do what you love what you do. Bye for now.